I want to show you what I've been doing with OpenClaw. I've been using it for about 2 weeks. I have it installed in my home lab area. I do have a Mac Mini that I was able to use, so I have it installed on its own computer. I originally started having it installed on a VM, but when I learned that there were skills that would be able to talk to my Apple reminders and notes and things that were local to my environment, I installed it on a Mac Mini to try to use some of those features that OpenClaw will do. Some of the skills to be able to connect to items like that. So when you first install OpenClaw, you do get this OpenClaw Gateway dashboard, and it's a nice way to get started. You can come in here and do things. If you notice there, it says, hey, show me the status. So it shows me the status of my OpenClaw environment. Show me all the installed skills that I have. So very quickly, it'll come back and give me a list of the skills that I have in my environment. But then, where as a VMware admin, where my mind went right away is, hey, I want to connect this into vCenter and operations and start getting values from there. So what's something that people want to know about in their VMware environment is, show me all the VMs that have a snapshot. So I have a skill that connects into vCenter, and you can see the prompt. It says check vCenter for VMs that have a snap, and then I had to specifically say include the snap age because it didn't do that. And then after you do prompts, you kind of learn, like, say, show values as whole numbers, because it might have said, or it might have showed the age to be 62.556 days or something, like 3 decimal points. And I just want whole numbers. So that's where you start to develop your prompts. And when I started learning how the prompts work better, I wanted to be able to save those prompts and quickly redo things. So if you notice that when the text is coming into this screen, really quickly, I have a Stream Deck, so I program buttons within my Stream Deck to make it repeatable. So even like, let's do this one. To be able to remember to type out all that text, to say do not include the VMs where the name starts with VCLS, because I don't care about those. And to say, hey, at what point do I want it to show as green, yellow, red? So that's where I started programming all these buttons on my Stream Deck, which is nice, and you can see there the results come back pretty cool. And that worked. And then one of the items that you can do with OpenClaw, here I'm going to pull this into the screen, is to use Telegram. So that's, if I would leave the house and I wanted to check something really quick, I was like, oh, I'll just pull that up in Telegram, so that way I could get back into my home and see what things are like. So if I run those same types of commands, if I say show me the status, they're really quick within the Telegram client, you'll see that. Same thing with skills. Show me the skills. But that's a lot of typing if you're on your iPhone. And then you can see in the background that it'll show in the gateway dashboard at the same time, in addition to showing up on the Telegram client. And then, let's do the snapshots. So if I'm away from the house and I want to see that same type of report, I could do that because the OpenClaw dashboard is running on my laptop, and maybe I'm out to dinner with my wife and I want to be able to check on something real quick. So there you can see it's an easy way to reach back into your environment, which is pretty neat. You're not opening up firewall to be able to get that access back into your own personal network, like my home lab area. So I thought that was cool. But where I thought something could be better was when you come up with a prompt to make it very repeatable. So let me show you where my progress has gone. So let me pull this out of the way. Clear this. So I went into Xcode, and I used Claude Codex, and I wanted to create a Mac native app for my Mac laptop and for my iPhone and for my iPad. I wanted to be able to come up with some prompts that I could just click a button or something and make it very quick, and then also have that information sync between all the devices. So if I'm developing a prompt on my Mac laptop, I don't have to redo it in on my iPhone or my iPad. So I'm using iCloud Sync. So whatever I make changes here, it automatically shows up on my phone or my iPad. So yeah, let's go through here and show you what I did. If you noticed back on the on this, so when you use the OpenClaw Gateway dashboard and you want to show something as HTML, it'll create the HTML for you, but it doesn't display it. So I wanted to get some rich results that had some HTML formatting and then also display that onto the screen. So let me show you what I developed. So here's a program that I created. It's a Mac native running Swift. I developed it in Xcode with Claude Codex helping me. And I wanted to be able to quickly save prompts and just click on them. You know, on the left-hand side, you can see all these different prompts. And it's almost like every one of these prompts becomes like a little mini app. So you have a spot down at the bottom where I can just type whatever I want. If I come up here and click on these, let's do the weather one. So where I live in Dillsburg, just show me, and where it says Telegram on the description, it's just going to come back as plain text. And that's nice, gives you nice little icons and stuff. But if you want something a little fancier, if you look at the prompt down at the bottom, it says return the results as rich HTML using a dark gray color theme. You know, make each day have its own card, and I came up with a prompt that seems to work. You know, the first time you create a prompt, it may not come back the way you want, but boy, that's without having to write any code at all. That's what it comes back with, and lets you see that. So, you know, I always say, you know, you wake up in the morning, grab your coffee or favorite energy drink, and check a couple items in your lab area, or even if you're using something like this in your business, eventually you'll probably see stuff like this show up. I would definitely recommend to test it in a lab area first, that you could do these kinds of results. Another thing I like to check is there any vCenter VMs with snapshots? You know, I said earlier I wanted to connect into vCenter, and there I have a VM that's Saltmaster. There's a description and how old it is, and that's okay. But let's say you wanted to make that a little nicer, kind of like the last prompt that did the weather. So if you hit this button here next to the prompts, it repeats the last prompt when it says create an MD list. So instead of saying that, if I change the code and show the data as an HTML report, using a dark gray, I found that seems to work pretty good. Color theme of all the VMs that have snapshots, include the age, snapshot as a whole number. So let's leave everything else the same. So instead of saying they come back as a markdown, let's make it an HTML report. Submit that, or send it. So now the OpenClaw server is connecting into vCenter, looking for VMs with snapshots, and it's going to bring it back as a nice report. And that looks a little nicer. Much nicer to look at. So let's just show some examples. So I have status, real quickly. You can see that. Click on here, see the skills. There's my skills. Now, one thing I wanted to do every now and then, instead of having that just stay there, I wanted to quickly clear the screen. So if I have this, looks like an eraser, it takes it back to the original screen. You know, some little features that I added was, you know, creating new prompts. Quickly brings up a screen to add new prompts. If you want to rearrange items, or like here, you can grab these prompts and move them up the list so that you can move them on the side. So here where it shows status and skills, let's say I want skills before status. There you can see it moved. Maybe I want to put the demo down at the bottom of that section. You can see you can quickly move things around. There's a demo prompt that I had set up. It says show the health of all the vCenter hosts, return the results in a rich HTML format. So now it's connecting to vCenter, and it's going to do a health check. There's all my hosts and the health. Let's say you got this and you didn't want the alarm column. So if you repeat the last prompt, then you can just, this is how I build the prompts to create those buttons. If I say do not include the alarms, let's send that. Now as you're building your prompts, when you get it in a way that the format you like, then that's where you can just put that into my button area on the left there to make it that you can always repeat it. That's something that I haven't yet. See, now the alarms is gone. So if I click the button to show me the last prompt, if I come down here and highlight all that text, copy it, and then where it says add prompt, this gear up here does the same thing. So if we go to demo, hit the pencil, let's paste in the new prompt. It says do not include the alarms. Hit save. So now if we go look at skills, there's the skills, there's the status. Now when we do this, it should do that host health check and not show the alarms column. And there's the results. It's very repeatable. So it makes each one of those menu items almost like a little mini application. You define the prompt, you have the skill on your OpenClaw server, and it runs. Can do whatever you want. So here's some more examples. I work at Broadcom and I want to know what the stock price is. So maybe at the end of every day, I could come in here and click on that button. And I understand that there's applications that you can put on your phones or web pages that you can go to. But if you have a bunch of little skills, it's just kind of a neat way to do it. And you can control where it gets the information, how it shows the information, what colors that you want to use. It's really up to you then, because you're defining it all through prompt. You know, you're not writing any code, but that looks pretty nice. Like I said, I can come up here, clear that. Now if you come up with, and then you can have some favorites. Let's do even like a ping test. Something that maybe you just want to keep an eye on every now and then, or if you're having a network issue, is, you know, think of things to add to this menu that are repeatable. So that's going to do a ping test, and if you look at the prompt down at the bottom here, it's going to do 2 5 ping tests and then show the average. So there's the results. Test 1 was 5 pings, test 2 5 pings, and there's no loss. Pretty cool. So these are all predefined, does exactly what you want and just immediately runs. So something else that kind of came to mind, you know, like the ping test, is if you come up with a prompt, but the IP number becomes like a variable. So to very quickly do something like that, I have these little snippets. So if you click on ping test, if you notice down at the bottom, it puts the prompt exactly like I want, but it doesn't finish the IP. So let's say I want to ping this number, which is a ESX host. So very quickly, it'll come back and do that ping. So there's the results for pinging my host. Hit the eraser, clear the screen, even like the weather. Let's say I'm going to travel. Broadcom has an office in Melville, New York that I go to sometimes. So if I say show me the weather for Melville, New York, it's not something I'm going to check a lot, but the prompt gives me everything that I liked when I do the one for where I live. Hit the send. Now it's going to go out and check the weather. So there's the 7-day forecast for Melville, New York. So what's interesting about this is I'm sure everybody's going to have different prompts that they may want to do. I'm focusing on VMware products, but if you think about it, as long as you can create a skill to connect to something, this program could really be used for anything. So my thoughts were to let people create these menu items and share them. So if there's interest on using this as maybe an open source project and people are like, yeah, I would love to have this, and then you want to also create prompts that you could share with other people, what I did is I made it that I can export and import those menu items. So if I click on this, export it as a JSON, you can see there's my prompts. If you want to see what that looks like, so there's that as a JSON file. So if somebody comes up with some really cool prompts and we would have like a repository to share these, I could grab it and import it into my area and test the prompt, and it would show me the exact words that it's using. And, let's say they were using like a red color theme and I liked my dark gray. I could very quickly then go in and just change a couple little words to make it look the way I want. Or if I have some prompts that work really well with operations and nobody's using that, hey, it gives you a way to get started and to share things. And I also did it for the snippets. And then you can here's how you do the import. You go out and you select the JSON file that you want to use and it'll bring it in. And I also made it that if the prompt already exists, it skips over it so it doesn't duplicate things. So a little bit of logic there. And the same thing with creating these snippets. There's the weather one, there's the ping one. You can export that as JSON. Same thing. Kind of gives you a nice, neat way to be able to share things. So I'd love to get some feedback. If this is something you think you would use, put it down in the comments of this post. I'm gonna put this out on LinkedIn and X. That's usually where I share things the most. I'm gonna create this as a YouTube video. So if you want to add comments here, you can do that. So let me know what you think. I think it's a program that I'm probably going to have running every day, all day long. That as I think of different skills to add to OpenClaw, I'll add them. As I come up with different prompts, I will create those prompts. I will export them every now and then as a JSON, not only to maybe share with somebody that wants this app, but also makes a nice way to do a little quick backup too. So you can get a lot of time building prompts, and I don't want to lose them. So like I said, here's a feature too. If I get a lot of prompts going and I want to just see the ones, there's Dillsburg. It quickly filters things because I can see this growing to be pretty big. Just really quick I can sort and do filtering, so I can add prompts, edit prompts, reorder the prompts, filter the prompts, have favorites, have different sections. You control the words, weather, OpenClaw, infrastructure. It's very When you first get started, you have a clean slate, and you create the categories, the prompts. You create your own snippets. You can repeat last commands, send. Um, oh, and then here's where you define your OpenClaw server settings. So you put in the IP number, or you could do the FQDN and then the port, and then here's the token that you need to use in order to connect. And it also works on my iPhone. I can do a video of that later. So, and like I said, I'm using the iCloud sync. So if I'm using this on my Mac app and I come up with a new prompt, it automatically gets pushed out to my iPhone or my iPad. It works. It works on all three devices that I have. If you have some ideas you'd like to share, like I said, please put it in the comments, and let's see what maybe we can create together. Give me some feedback. Is this something that you find useful? You know, a lot of chat programs don't let you save chats like that and make it repeatable, or even make it that if the results are HTML, to display it in a rich text kind of format, which that's the part that I really like. So hope you liked the video. Looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are. Thanks for taking the time to watch this.